With the new Halo Infinite demo and trailer dropping just 4 months before the release of Halo Infinite, there's definitely a lot of things to be excited about, and while we felt like maybe Microsoft could have shown off a little more than they did with the very little amount that they actually showed, it didn't stop the entire Halo community to dive into the smallest details of the trailer to see what else we could possibly learn about this game. I mean, seriously, Microsoft has kept Halo Infinite under wraps for quite some time, so a lot of fans of Halo probably feel like Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, but instead of National Treasure, it's Halo. And while it seems like for the most part, people are pretty excited about Halo Infinite still, it also seems like there's a pretty large subsection of the community who brought up their concerns of the graphics behind Halo Infinite. With the release of the next-gen consoles right around the corner, people are looking closely at any and all games shown off during this time to see what these consoles coming up are truly capable of. And with Halo kind of being the front man when it comes to Xbox, there's definitely a lot of pressure on this new Halo game to not only look good, but also revolutionary. So while we've seen some footage showcasing how great some parts of this game can look, and over the years we've actually gotten to see how great things look in this new slipspace engine that was built for Halo, during the demo itself, things maybe fell a little flat at times. Some of the textures on the weapons looked a little generic, enemies sometimes would look a little bland close up, and sure, some of the trees in the background maybe look like a JPEG image just kind of dropped in there. Now, despite all of this, Luke and I are still mostly optimistic, and maybe even a better word would be cautiously optimistic, despite some of these concerns that are fairly being presented. Considering the state of the world right now, the fact that E3 was canceled, with what we suspect the demo was actually originally recorded for, and with the fact that when you compare the footage from the demo to the footage of the trailer that they also released alongside the demo, you can actually see some big improvements in graphics and textures just between the two versions of something that were presented on the same day. But it did open up the discussion to a much bigger question when it comes to the Halo franchise. In the grand scheme of everything, how important are graphics to Halo? To better understand this, Luke and I decided to jump on Halo 3 PC, lower all the graphics and resolution to as low as we could go to see if Halo 3 could still be fun while playing on these Game Boy Advance level graphics, and you know, honestly, it was still kind of fun, to be honest. When Halo Combat Evolved initially released in 2001, it was heavily praised for the amazing world building and fun gameplay, and while graphically speaking, by 2001 standards, Halo CE looked decent, it definitely wasn't utilizing all of the graphical power that the original Xbox was capable of. Other games released around the same time easily looked on par or even better than CE, which should, if anything, be a testament as to why Halo CE was so hugely successful when it released. Halo revolutionized the FPS genre on console with dual stick controls, opening up more precise gameplay to the shooting genre. Halo had this cool two-weapon meta and good gunplay that made big team matches or smaller close-quarter games universally fun. And while the graphical span of Halo CE was limited, the world building introduced in Halo was unprecedented to any other game. Not only was the Halo ring a unique set piece for a sci-fi shooter, but Bungie's decision to use varying color palettes to make the atmosphere of each level pop in their own way was fundamental in immersing players in the game's universe. And Halo 2 came out just 3 years later and looks massively better and was revolutionary for its time both graphically and from a game ingenuity perspective. But the fact that Halo CE didn't look like Halo 2, even though technically those graphics are clearly capable on the Xbox hardware, should at least point out that Halo 1 was extremely fun even though it didn't utilize all the possibilities that were capable graphically with that game, because Halo 2 pushed the bar even further. And while with Halo 2 we do believe the graphics did probably contribute to an extent to the game's success, to argue that the graphics were fundamental to how big the game ended up being would probably undermine the functionality that was so fluid throughout Halo 2. And even with the praise we give to Halo 2 graphics, some of the things weren't perfect either. I mean, faces looked really stale at times for even 2004 standards, but visually this game was still quite beautiful. So when we kind of use that perspective to look forward to Halo Infinite, while of course the expectation is that this game that was in development for 5 years would have some of the best looking graphics in the industry, we are still cautiously optimistic that these rough edges around the demo might be that 343 may have put a larger amount of time and focus during the game development in making sure that the gameplay was the most important feature, with the graphics of the game being addressed in the later stages of development. Hence the reason that we see changes already between the demo and the trailer that we've seen, which were simultaneously released on the same day. This could potentially mean that 343 was building this game off of the philosophy that gameplay really should come before the graphical and artistic approach to the game, which is something they've heavily been criticized about doing in the past. And we're trying our best to be realistic with the state of this new Halo game, and we want to be critical in areas where we feel like we need to be, but we aren't really sure if the graphical evaluations should be as contentious of an issue. We do think 343 Industries is confident in the engine build of the game, considering the fact that with Infinite, they've been choosing to go with in-game engine cutscenes, much like the older Halo games did, rather than bringing in Blur to do the cutscenes like they did with Halo 2 Anniversary and the Halo Wars games. It would obviously be an easier choice for 343 Industries to easily wow audiences during the marketing stages of this game by showcasing a bunch of pre-rendered Blur cutscenes that would represent Infinite and what we would experience in Infinite. Yet since the beginning of the marketing for this game started years ago at E3, they opted to only show in-engine showcases. So they're definitely avoiding doing things that could be argued as a bait and switch representation of the game, which is something that they ran into with the marketing for Halo 5 Guardians, which ended up in a lot of backlash for that game. To date, Halo 3 is probably my favorite Halo game, and even to this day, the game holds up really well, especially with the enhancements made when it was added to the MCC. Sure, the game could use a remaster, but the fact that this 13-year-old game hasn't received a remaster and people are still really excited about playing this game, it still should, to at least some extent, show that this game has interest because the core gameplay of Halo 3 is fun, and that's why people play it. Halo Reach, on the other hand, is another good example to look at. The game really didn't run all that well on the 360 if you look at the specs it had back in the day, and this is something we encountered head-on this channel whenever we were trying to record footage for Reach before playing the MCC port before that actually released. If you play a Halo game on MCC and then go back and play Reach on the 360, you'll definitely have this jarring experience, as for the most part, Reach definitely was pushing the 360 hardware limitations back in the day. With Reach, graphically speaking, the game was much more ambitious, though the limitations of the 360 resulted in resolution scaling, and Bungie implemented a new anti-aliasing system to the Halo engine, which, when you compare Reach to Halo 3, Reach actually would sometimes look blurrier compared to the sharper picture that Halo 3 had, even though objects in Halo 3 would have more jaggier edges. Interestingly enough though, 343 announced that they would be adding a ray tracing update to Halo Infinite around the time of launch, and this is cool, though it does reaffirm to us that graphics are probably the last major task that 343 has been working on with this game. We probably will unfortunately see some of these updates come out post-launch because delaying the game likely isn't an option for Microsoft with a new console releasing. And even with the game being only 4 months away, we really don't know the extent of graphical upgrades that 343 Industries will be adding, though 4 months is actually a lot more time than people are making it out to be in various arguments. The main argument to be made here is that when it comes to Halo, gameplay has always trumped graphics, and even the art direction and world building of the game has proven to be more valuable than the graphics itself time after time again with Halo. It's clear that Infinite is seeing an art direction shift back to the style from the original trilogy, and maybe some people are even misinterpreting that shift as some sort of lack of power or lack of visual fidelity on 343's part. But also, we can look back at ODST, which released in 2009, to Halo Reach, that released in 2010, which had drastically different looking cutscenes and character animation comparatively, but ODST is still praised as a great Halo campaign, despite the fact that it was still rocking the same cutscene stylization that Halo 3 had, as Reach hadn't released yet with the newer form. And to this day, ODST is still a fan favorite in the Halo community. I guess the big takeaway here is that the 8 minutes of Halo Infinite gameplay we saw in the demo really showed us nothing, and that's what we are actually most concerned about here. Obviously, with such little actual gameplay shown, we're going to look at whatever else we can see in the trailer, and it makes sense why people are looking at the graphics, because there's nothing really that new or surprising shown gameplay-wise from the 8-minute demo that we saw. And while we're pretty neutral going forward on how this game will be when it releases, for now we're trying our best to wait to form a full pre-launch opinion of the game until we see a much larger scope to what the gameplay of this game is really going to shape up to look like, rather than the short little snippet we actually got to see. There's definitely a lot of potential with what they did show, but I'd be lying to say if I didn't feel the need to see more, and if I wasn't slightly disappointed that they didn't show the Halo Infinite game in a larger scale detail at the Halo event. But we're supposed to be getting some more news sometime in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully that might ease some of our skepticism. But we're going to try to stay optimistic but also neutral in seeing what 343 offers up to kind of show players that this Halo could potentially be the revolutionary game that fans have really wanted to see for a long time. But this is definitely a very open conversation, and we wanted to ask you guys where you guys stand on the graphical issues. How important are graphics in Halo to you guys? Let us know in the comments down below, because we would like to have some sort of conversation with our community about that. Or come to our Twitch stream at twitch.tv/RocketSlothYT whenever we're streaming, and feel free to talk with us on there as well. But hey, after all of that, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos just like this one, and you won't miss anything we upload, even if YouTube's acting all whack. Also, if you want to, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Rocket Elijah, or you can follow Luke at Rocket Sloth Luke. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video. Bye guys.